It's a beautiful morning in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, and we are here to bring you the Daybreak show live from Trust TV. I am Ayuba Ilya.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Stella Iyaji. Ayuba, good morning.
Good morning, Stella, and welcome to the program. Well, a lot really. Talking about reactions trailing the governorship and state assembly elections. We are seeing that opponents in the race are raising tantrums. Some of them are rejecting outrightly the outcome of the elections and are heading to the court. It looks like lawyers are going to be making a lot of money this time.
You know, a friend of mine was telling me yesterday that, oh, you media people are going to rest now that the elections are over. And I looked at her and I said, are the elections over? Because so many people are going to the court. So I do not know at what point we can actually say the process and everything is over.
And I'm wondering why we're having this, whether or not this time around we'll have more number of litigations on the table of INEC or not.
It already looks as if we're having more.
Yeah,
almost every state, you know, look at the Daily Trust newspaper already. You know, so many states are already, in almost every state, you have one party saying they're going to court.
And we're not only talking about the governorship election, we're also talking about the state assembly election.
And even the earlier one, the presidential and the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Yes, so you have senators, I mean, you have candidates of senatorial election, you have candidates of the House of Reps, and also the state assemblies, you know, as well as the governorship. So we are not only talking about the presidential, where you have, you know, the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and also
the candidate of the Labour
Party, Peter Obi, you know, challenging the outcome of the election. So it looks like INEC is going to have quite a lot in its hands to deal with.
Yes, because in most of those cases, INEC will be joined in the suit. So INEC will have to have lawyers representing them in almost all of those cases as well.
But is there anything that would have been done better? Do you think that INEC, you know, would have done anything differently to reduce these cases?
You know, there are lots of people that have talked about the fact that, you know, when some of these parties raised observation at maybe during the collation and all of that, maybe there were things INEC could have done. But then we'll leave that to the courts to decide if INEC was supposed to have done that before the matters came to them or not. You know?
All right. Well, then let's take a look at the headlines as we have them this morning. For you, elections over, healing process must begin, says President-elect Bola Tinubu.
U.S. Violent voter intimidation marred Nigeria's governorship elections.
Taraba governorship polls, NNPP rejects results, heads to court.
Now let's take a look at the details. The President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu has condemned what he described as isolated cases of infractions, ethnic slurs, and violence that characterized the 2023 general elections, saying the healing process must begin now that the elections are over. Tinubu, in a statement on Tuesday in Abuja, said he would run an inclusive government like he did while serving as governor of Lagos State when he finally takes over power on May 29. He called on all elected officials to take urgent steps to unite the people and champion the healing process.
The government of the United States on Tuesday said that the governorship and state assembly elections in Nigeria on March 18 were marked by violence, voter intimidation, and suppression. The U.S. diplomatic mission in Nigeria, which disclosed this in a statement in Abuja, said its members observed the elections in Lagos and elsewhere and witnessed some of these incidents firsthand. The U.S. therefore called on the Nigerian authorities to hold accountable and bring to justice any individuals found to have ordered or carried out efforts to intimidate voters and suppress voting during the election process. It also renewed its call for any challenges to election results to go through established legal processes which must not be interfered with.
The new Nigeria People's Party governorship candidate in Taraba State, Mohammed Yahya, has rejected Taraba governorship election results declared by INEC. This is even as the All Progressive Congress governorship candidate, Senator Emmanuel Boucha, has congratulated Agbu Kefas of PDP, who was declared winner of the election by INEC. Sani Yahya, while reacting to the election results declared by INEC during a press conference in Jalingo, said the results were not what was actually recorded in the field. He said he won the election, but the results were manipulated, adding that people of the state know what it was the NNPP that it was the NNPP that actually won the election, but the party was robbed of its victory. The NNPP candidate disclosed that he would challenge the results declared by INEC in the court, pointing out that the legal process to reclaim his victory has started.
Stakeholders in the maternal health sector say that they are committed to providing improved services in order to boost maternal, newborn and childbirth. Now, they stated this at a summit organized by the Center for Infectious Disease Research and the Africa Center of Excellence for Population Health and Policy, Bayero University in Abuja. Maridia Umar has more.
Nigeria, according to the WHO, has the highest estimated number of maternal deaths, accounting for 1/4 of all estimated global maternity deaths, that is about 82,000. To address these and other issues, the Center for Infectious Disease Research says the summit provides a platform to brainstorm with stakeholders in the public and private sector on ways to improve maternal, newborn and child health in Nigeria.
Each of them will play as their contributions towards improving MNCH situations in Nigeria. And the final objective is to come up with resolution or realistic intervention that will lead to a better MNCH situation in Nigeria.
The president of the Nigerian Medical Association says the rate of maternal deaths in Nigeria is quite embarrassing. Hence, relevant stakeholders must be involved in tackling the menace.
From the perspective of the Nigerian doctors, we want to say that the maternal mortality rate, infant mortality rate, under 5 mortality rates that we have are embarrassing. Sincerely, ranking us with Somalia and some of those countries is difficult to accept. Sincerely. And the perspective we want to point out to this summit is to also look at, apart from combating the diseases, in recent times, if you check, conflict has become a major source of maternal mortality.
The Minister of Health here represented says, though there has been some progress in the sector, more needed to be done to further explore ways of addressing noticeable lapses.
I'm glad to inform you that some states have already keyed in and have now established departments of family health in their ministries. Furthermore, several child survival interventions have been designed to train frontline health workers at the point of service across healthcare levels.
The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Nasir Sani Gwarzo, expressed the need for collective efforts to achieve desired goals.
This is the time for this conference to come up with a resolution on how the humanitarian ministry must put in place a preemptive action plan that will cater for refugees, IDPs, people on the move, people affected by sudden disasters like flood, women delivering on trees. Who will guide this process?
Stakeholders say the summit is timely as it will recommend solutions for critical areas in the health sector for the incoming administration. Martia Umar, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Mardia Umar, for that report. Now, on Tuesday was the International Day of the Forest, set aside by the United Nations to highlight the significance and importance of forests to man with the theme Forest and Health. Noel Sampson reports that more than 1.6 billion people across the globe are directly dependent on forests for food, medicines, shelter, and energy, among others. Let's take the report.
The 21st of March, the United Nations marks the International Day of Forest to commemorate the green cover around and reiterate its importance in the world. The day serves as a reminder of the vital role that forests play in our daily lives, as these are homes to all forms of wildlife and provide sustenance to communities around the world. Climate change advocates in Nigeria have joined the rest of the world to celebrate the day by engaging on tree planting outreach campaigns across secondary schools in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja.
We thought it's important for us to as an organization to not just help journalists, to report issues around forests, deforestation and the likes, but to also walk the talk. And that's why we are doing this for the third year in a row, to help plant trees, educate young people, especially secondary school students, to learn about the importance of forests, the need to be intentional about protecting the environment, and also to let them know why the reason why we have unusual weather pattern will be because of climate change. And if we really want to reverse things back to default, or to get things to be sustainable, to get the environment to be sustainable, then we need to be intentional. And planting trees is one of the many ways that we can play our part, and that's what we are doing here today.
So celebrating the International Day of Forest is very important, is very critical, especially forests plays a major part in addressing climate change issue.
The climate change advocates called on younger generations to be part of this noble cause to ensure a safe and conducive environment for all, as healthy forests will bring healthy people. Some of these schools appreciated the gestures where they reiterated the importance of protecting forests from destruction.
Planting trees, having trees around us creates a lot of healthy environment around us too. So the students that have been giving this information this morning, I'm sure they will tell other students that are not here. And not only that, they will inform their parents at home, they will inform their siblings, and the advantage of planting trees.
I plan to put this in practice when I have the opportunities to. If anything, I'll try and plant more trees around my houses or any other place I notice that trees are lacking in that place. Plus, I will try to encourage people about the importance of this.
Planting a plant is good for the environment, also for climate change.
It is important to know forest sustainable management and use of resources are key to combating climate change and can contribute to prosperity and well-being of current and future generations. Noel Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, well, very, very important to pay attention to the environment on a day like this, and good enough that we have people who are committed to doing that in their own capacity.
But how much of that do we even do in Nigeria? We keep talking about protecting the forest, but you still see instances where people actually go to the forest to cut down trees and then use them for firewood and
cook. It's quite a complex issue. Just like our reporter noted here, the forests have different purposes and different things for people. And I mean, before this age of awareness and information, in the past, in the olden days, people look up to the forest for living. As a matter of fact, they get it's a source of energy for them, it's a source of food, and medicine and even shelter. So,
and maybe because then we had more trees, so there was no fear that the more you cut them down, the more you destroy the environment and all of that.
Yes, and industrialization has not
exactly, and then we don't have all this climate change situation. We didn't have them at that time, so and that is why they say when you fall one tree, you plant 10.
Yes, and I think the difference, the huge difference is the industrialization that has taken place. So because of industrialization, there is every need for us to be deliberate and go extra to, plant trees and to do some of these things for the sake of our environment.
And another thing is the fact that when these days come, like yesterday was the Day of the Forest, we talk about it, there will be talk shops and everything. After that day, what happens? No follow-up, nothing on the implementation of whatever was discussed on that day.
Well, ours is to keep the conversation going and to keep the informations on the front burner. Now, let's take a look at some other issues. The biggest upset from the 2023 elections occurred in Zamfara State, where the candidate of the opposition PDP, Dauda Lawal, defeated the incumbent governor Bello Matawalle of the APC. The outcome of the governorship election has changed the dynamics of state's politics, rendering incumbency factors in electoral victory important. In this report, Shafiu Suleiman chronicles Lawal Dare's long journey to victory. Take a look.
The Supreme Court on Friday, May 24, 2019, held that APC did not conduct valid primaries in Zamfara State in the build-up to the election, paving the way for the then PDP governorship candidate Bello Matawalle to be sworn in as governor of Zamfara State on May 29th. The judgment also affected the state assembly election won by the APC. However, 2 years into his tenure, Governor Matawalle defected to the APC on June 11, 2021, leaving his deputy Mahadi Gusau, who refused to defect with him. Gusau was later impeached by the State House of Assembly and was replaced by Senator Hassan Nasiha.
I want to assure you that we will not relent in our commitment and the determination to achieve lasting peace and promote the well-being of our people. We are determined to ensure peaceful conduct of the election and encourage free political activities, inshallah. On this note, I would like to use this medium to call on the good people of Zamfara State to continue to pray for peace and prosperity in the state.
Dr. Lawal Dare's long journey to victory started with his emergence as PDP governorship candidate in the state in September last year. This was after a federal high court has nullified the previous primary that produced him as the candidate. The Supreme Court on March 6, however, affirmed Lawal Dare as PDP candidate in Zamfara State. Shehu Gusau and 2 others had challenged the outcome of the second primary and succeeded. Lawal Dare and his wife were attacked by suspected political thugs on the eve of the presidential election in February.
As a result, 2 of my security escorts, a police sergeant and inspector, sustained various gunshots. In addition to those police, 5 other innocent civilians also sustained gunshot injuries.
All of these belong to the history books now, as Independent National Electoral Commission INEC on Tuesday declared Dauda Lawal Dare as winner of the governorship election in Zamfara State, giving the state a reputation of bringing surprises in electoral matters. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Shafiu Suleiman, for that report. We'll now go for a very short break. When we return, we'll look at what the newspapers are saying today. Please stay.
That's great.
documenting the Nigerian story.
But in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. We have Ben Chemang, the former director of News Voice of Nigeria, with us in the studio to review the stories with us right here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always a great pleasure.
All right, let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story here says governorship polls. Defeated candidates reject results in Kano, Lagos, Bauchi, Delta, and others. It has the riders that says urge supporters to remain calm, head for courts, protest rock Ogun, Nasarawa, Abia. Politicians must be ready to prove their cases, says lawyers. You'd find all the details on page 4. Above the lead story, soldier shoots Okada man, kills nursing mother, baby over 200 naira. Tinubu Atiku clash over comment on healing after polls. You'd find that on page 12. CBN's MPC raises interest rate to 18%, and that's on page 24. Now, below the lead story, outage looms as TCN set to disconnect 13 defaulting discos and Jankos on page 24. Woman sets son, grandchildren, daughter-in-law ablaze in Ondo on page 21. I'm eager to leave Aso Rock, says Buhari on page 35 for the upturned time. The president is saying that. Well, it's just a matter of few weeks, or I would say 2 months or so. You would find also the pictorial showing you the protests in Nasarawa, where women protest alleged manipulation of the Nasarawa governorship election. And now below that, 4 hurdles Zamfara governor-elect scaled to unseat Matawale. Governor imposes dusk to dawn curfew. All that on page 3 and 8. These are the main stories on the Daily Trust newspaper today.
Now let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper. It has a lead story that says 68 days to hand over. Remove fuel subsidy before you go. U.S. government tells federal government, tells PMB. And then we have a rider that says President takes stock, says have addressed insecurity, separatist agitations, oil theft. And beneath that, we have a picture of the Benue State governor-elect. And there's a statement there where he says, I don't need a first lady to govern, as experts explain why Matawale, Omagigi, Abubakar, others lost. Still on the leadership, we have no manipulation can overturn our results in Abia. This is coming from the Labour Party candidate, OT. And beneath that, terrorism, federal government arraigns negotiator Mamu on 10-count charge. We also have Naira scarcity bites harder as MPC raises interest rate to 18%. 21 days after, Atiku Obi filed petitions against presidential election. And just above the masthead, we have PDP wins Taraba, Zamfara polls, Dere shocks Matawale, APC wins Niger. Also, we have Tinubu flees purveyors of ethnicity, violence. We also have Ramadan, Muslims look out for new moon today. These are the major stories on the Leadership newspaper for today.
All right, now let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. On the Vanguard, the lead story there talks about Tinubu sues for peace, condemns ethnic slurs, election violence. You'd find also above the masthead, anxiety heightens over Enugu Abia governorship results. CBN admits weak links in cash withdrawals, raises policy rate. You have Kaduna train attack, FG docks terrorist negotiator Mamu on 10-count charge. FG exempts Telcom from 5% excise duty. Also, below the lead story, Several other stories there. Constitution review, Buhari rejects bill on power to summon president governors. Well, you also have polls. U.S. plans new visa ban on electoral offenders. How I curbed vote buying. Buhari. Obi, Atiku, others file petitions to nullify Tinubu's victory. You have contempt. Order courts to reject EFCC cases. Over 250 lawyers tell NJC. Kaduna poll. PDP rejects INEC's declaration of APC's Uba Sani. You have also in sports news, Shorumu hits back at NFF. So these are the main stories on the Vanguard this morning.
Now let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. It has a lead story that says, President-elect. This is coming from the President-elect. He says, election is over. It's time for healing. And then the rider, Tinubu decries ethnic politics, violence. And beneath that, we have Washington Post rates polls high in spite of hitches. Also, just beneath the masthead, we have no cash in banks despite CBN's 1 trillion naira in circulation claim. Anxiety over results persists in Enugu, Abia, Adamawa, and Kebbi. And above the masthead, we have declare me winner or cancel election, Obi urges tribunal. Then the rider, Labour Party files 3 grounds petition. We also have digital economy operators exempted from 5% excise duty. Wike tackles Amechi for linking INEC chair to him. These are the major stories on the Nation for today.
All right. Now, on the Punch newspaper, the lead story, protests rock Ogun, Abia, Nasarawa over poll results. Adebutu Kano, APC candidates ask INEC to declare elections inconclusive. LP groups want Abia, Enugu, Lojam resolved. Oshun, Oyo tribunals get 34 petitions. I didn't interfere in polls. Results reflected Nigerians' choices, says Buhari. Above the masthead, Atiku, Obi, 2 others ask tribunal to nullify Tinubu's victory. U.S. hails INEC threatens visa ban over violence and intimidation. You have below the pictorials, economists fault MPC over 18% lending rate. Ogun ex-permanent secretary, wife found dead in Lagos home. FG loses suit to recover 70 trillion naira loot. These are the main stories on the Punch newspaper.
Over now to This Day newspaper. Has a lead story that says, Obi, Atiku, 2 others want tribunal to void Tinubu's declaration as president-elect. And the first rider, declare me winner of presidential election, Obi tells tribunal, says Tinubu Shatima not qualified to be on ballot. Second rider, 6 president-elect's disqualification on account of his U.S. drug-related forfeitures. And above that, we have, this is coming from the president, saying, I'm happy Nigerians now realize their voting power. Says, I told voters to take money, vote according to their conscience. Hints is eager to retire home to tend his over 300 animals. Remove fuel subsidy before leaving, U.S. envoy advises president. And above the masthead, we have Emefiele apologizes for deluge of online transaction failure. Just above that as well, we have, this is coming from the president-elect, physical verbal assaults during the March 18 governorship state assembly elections unacceptable. And then we have, just beneath the pictorial, I am opposite of what you're saying about me, Obi replies in Namani. These are the major stories on This Day newspaper for today.
All right, so let's get some perspectives to some of the stories that we just read out on the front pages of our papers. Ben Chairman, quite a lot of stories this morning. We're seeing reactions from the governorship and state assembly elections. Maybe we should begin with that. The Daily Trust newspaper is leading with, the reactions that governorship candidates in various states are rejecting the outcome, and that's not only for the governorship. I'm certain that even from some of the state assembly candidates. Are you surprised at the kind of rejections that we are seeing now, at the kind of protest that is trailing? Why is it hard for opponents or candidates who run in that election to just accept the verdict of INEC?
The problem is accepting defeat is never easy for the Nigerian politician. It's not easy. I mean, if it were like football, in the end, you see them hugging themselves. Oh, you've tried, man. Another day, we'll see what we'll do. But even when you hear politicians saying it's not a do or die affair, post-election violence are always very, very dangerous. Especially when people feel, I won and I was denied. You know? But when some people also feel, if you are not satisfied, go to the court, and in the court, it's like they know, okay, with the judiciary, it's as if it is not an unserious kind of, just go there now and go and lay your complaint. After all, how many presidential elections have been upturned? None in this country. Then if you look at even the US coming to say, well, there are some areas that we don't agree with. You know, it's a very big thing. People thought that when Goodluck Jonathan, look at 2015, when Goodluck Jonathan just felt he was not going to challenge it. The law allowed him to challenge if he wanted. He also encouraged the party, PDP. The law allows the party to also challenge on behalf of the candidate, or the candidate and the party can go together, a three-pronged kind of approach. But Jonathan simply said no. And that period, you just saw that court cases went down. I mean, it was like the lawyers were not happy that time. Today, everybody, you can see from one of the headlines, whoever does not accept, go to court, the onus is on you to prove. And of course, that tells you also the lawyers are happy with the situation. We are persistently, continuously, and insistently that we will have to all be going to court.
Mr. Sherman, I have been wondering though, with all of this number, I mean, apart from the Kano, Lagos, Bauchi, and Delta here, we still have a lot of others within the story that the persons who came second or third are saying they are going to court. Now, the thing is, I'm wondering, is it that they truly do not believe in the outcome of the result? They do not believe in the process? Or in some cases, some persons are saying that maybe some of them are going to court so that it will put them in a better bargaining situation, in a better bargaining position when a new government comes in.
Yeah, you see, the person who wants to have some bargaining chips will rather pull out from going to court so that they align with someone they've perceived has won. Now, if somebody is insisting in going to court and is in court and, of course, providing whatever evidence, of course, he feels he has won. Probably the ways of Imo State will come his way, where number 3 suddenly became the governor, going by some rulings of the...
Actually, number 4.
Number 4. I mean, today he's still a governor. So some people will feel that that could still happen. But again, it all depends on what evidence they have. What indeed are the demands. Are the demands of APC the same thing, PDP, the same thing with that of Labour? So whatever are your cries are the ones the Supreme Court, the Electoral Tribunal will look out for, and if there are remedies, there are the remedies being given to you. So it's just a pity that honestly we overdrag this matter, spend government funds, spend people's funds, and in the end, what do you get?
Okay, do you think that there are trust issues here? Maybe trust on the credibility of INEC. Maybe that's why we're seeing this. Maybe it's not necessarily that there are infractions or irregularities, but just that is just the trust that is not there.
You see, this going to court is not about the presidential candidate alone. Usually you have to adjoin INEC. INEC will have to be a co-defendant. Come and defend your actions and inactions. Here you are, the law says this, and look at it. Did you comply with this? Did you comply with that? You know, so the burden of trust, you see, you have to allow people to see and accept that these elections were free, credible, fair, and therefore acceptable or accepted by the voting population, and even those who did not vote, so that they don't say, didn't I tell you? I told you I won't vote, because the result would not just be it, you know. And so, yes, issue of trust, and trust, you see, is a burden. You have to live above board. Now, we're seeing inconclusive elections still hanging on. It's really not the best at all. So I think that INEC has to be above board. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it's like there's no immediate election that they have to kind of come clean.
Mr. Chairman, how much of a burden is this issue for the winners of this election? Because it's easy for the winners to say, well, I won, so I'm not bothered about whoever wants to go to court, let them go to court. How much of a burden is it? Because it's going to have, you are going to have a situation where every now and then people are going to question your legitimacy.
Exactly.
And say, well, after all, you didn't really emerge, you were just given.
It's just like someone who is just out of prison. At the point, some people will say, oh, he's an ex, he's an ex. But in the case of these elections, when people will say, oh, it's like a stolen mandate, and of course you parade yourself that way, the day you are swearing in, that burden is there. You carry the Holy Quran, you carry the Holy Bible, and swear that, see, I mean, it's a very big burden, truly, that you are holding those books and saying everything went okay, and you are being sworn in by those conducts. And therefore, when you move along the road, what really do you have in, what is your thinking in your innermost self? Do you feel comfortable? Can you sleep very well and say, yes, I have it, you know? And so the burden is just it's like a scare on a man's or woman's face. An injury is there, and to show what happened to your forehead every time you owe people explanations.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned something. You said in 2015, the number of litigations that we had were not so many, and that was shortly after the president at that time congratulated the president-elect, and, you know, he didn't challenge it. Now, this time around, it appears as if we're going to have a lot from what we have seen so far. Now, what changed? Is it that the politicians just are finding it very difficult to accept defeat, or that the conduct by INEC at that time and now they have a problem with the conduct?
You see, when Goodluck Jonathan accepted defeat, that already doused tension. And when you look at President Buhari's statements thereafter, I remember I was in the State House. He said, see, do you know Jonathan is a Democrat? Tell me who would have simply, in Africa, picked the phone and call an opponent. You have won. Set up your committee. I said mine. Look at transition. That doused tension. Again, Buhari will tell you, it's always not democracy. Where a governor is in a state and you're organizing elections, all chairmen, all lawmakers must come from the governor's party. What kind of democracy? He was always saying it. Can we begin to practice democracy? You could see that But people thought that it was going to take the shape the days of Yaradua too, who indeed was not someone who came out to say the process that brought him in was marred with irregularities. So today we are seeing resurgence, let me put it, an avalanche of court cases, people believing I won. Even the person who got maybe 5,000 votes believes he won, so the honors, again, like we said, is for him or her to come and prove.
Okay.
You see people withdrawing from the races too, because there were irregularities. Internal democracies, even within the parties.
Okay,
you
so
don't find them.
Let's talk about the big elephants in the room, talking about these litigation issues, the presidential candidates in this election. Obi, Atiku, two others want tribunal to void Tinubu's declaration as president-elect. So yesterday we saw that they formally filed their petition at the tribunal seeking the nullification of the outcome of the election. That's declaring Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the winner. What do you make of all this in terms of the substance of the case?
Well, you see, I am a spectator in this matter, as it is. But what's the substance in this case? If you said there were snatching of ballot boxes, snatching of ballot papers, vote stuffing, it's for you to prove. If you say it was schemed, skewed, arranged in such a way that it favors one side, it's for you to prove. Now, if you say security agencies were used against all odds, against democratic culture and norm, it's for you to prove.
So one of the issues raised by the Peter Obi, for instance, is he's questioning the eligibility of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to run for the office in the first place.
Yes.
So the issue of the allegations around the drug case, the drug trafficking issue was raised. The allegations around his certificates and the rest of them were raised as well.
Well, let's hope that the case is handled and finished, even up to Supreme Court, before the swearing in. But the moment you've sworn him in, it will not just be easy to carry on with these prosecutions because of some of these immunities a sitting president or governor has in Nigeria.
But does the immunity cover, a tribunal that is challenging? Well, I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't know if the immunity will now cover also
is absolute
the challenges and the challenging
but the matter continues at the court, even if
the matter. That would just be an academic exercise. You can't arrest him. The only thing you can do is an impeachment. And again, who is
Are you saying that after the swearing in, the court cannot make a judgment to nullify his election?
Well, you see, the Constitution is the greatest of the greatest. It gives immunity to these people. So what do you do?
The immunity has nothing to do with the ruling of a court, though. The court continues with its work even if when somebody has been sworn.
In fact, the court can continue sitting. But what has been the result of every court sitting? Shagali had it. What was the result?
No, but if you talk about that, there are cases, to draw from. There are examples to draw from. Lawyers have talked about cases in Malawi and also in Kenya where there were, court cases similar to this that were upturned. But we leave that argument to lawyers.
Yeah, all right. Still on. While that is ongoing, while the close contenders are in court, Atiku and the Labour Party, we saw the president-elect saying yesterday that it is time for the healing process should begin. And why he said so, one of the spokespersons of Atiku said, well, the healing process cannot begin if some persons who were seen to have made some inciting statements or have been involved in voter suppression are not seen to be punished. Specifically, the statement mentioned MC Oluomo, that he made some statements and no arrests have been made or anything that, so you cannot talk about a healing process. What do you make of that?
Honestly, we've been speaking about the burden in this election. Even Bayo Ononoga, the man who is in charge, as the spokesman of the campaign team, and is still speaking for the president-elect. What did he say? Igbos being warned even against 2027. We've not even started the journey towards 2027. Now, how do you set up an agenda this way for an incoming regime? For where your principal is saying, let's begin to find ways, frayed nerves will have to be settled, let's calm down. Can we have some committees to begin to, look, let's mellow down. The musician will say, kulu, kulu temper when it comes to this election. It's just like Femi Adesina. I think he will leave office with also a burden, where he was telling people around Southern Kaduna, Plateau, said, look, why do you stick up to onto your traditional land when you can surrender it and stay alive? You know, that kind of a thing. When you are speaking for a president who is for every citizen, you must know the thinking of your principal. When your principal is standing on a spot, you cannot start a movement. If it's going to the right, don't go to the left. And that's exactly what we are seeing.
Is that
when we had, just a moment, when we had Oba of Lagos, 2019, at the point he was saying, if the Igbos do not vote for his candidate in Lagos, I mean, they'll be pushed to the lagoons. In a federation of this nature, I think it doesn't augur well. When people just believe a place, I mean, like Lagos, you say, the Igbos can simply pack and go. I saw somebody saying, look, so much of Igbo investment is in Lagos. But when you look at the Yoruba investment in Igbo land, I'm sorry, they brought religion in. They say you just have branches of churches. So, what does it say? Even if it is branches of churches, it's to seek for this unity. It's for us to move ahead. And so, let us believe in this oneness of this country. And that's why I will always call for state of residence in all our forms, officially, instead of state of origin. We have always said it. Yes, let me come. When Stella, her children want to go to NTA, they say, where's your state of origin? Meanwhile, they were married, they were given birth in Abuja, they attended school here, she paid taxes in Abuja. Now they are told to go to her state. Maybe the husband, again, is from a different state. All sorts of things. Why don't we simply accept some things and move on easily, rather than heightening tension? And when you look at those who are heightening this tension, they are people who indeed are stakeholders of this nation.
All right. Well, I mean, the subject of, like the one we are talking about, ethnic profiling and the rest of them, I wonder whether we are ever going to come over that and overcome that, because we heard about stories of non-indigens in Taraba, for instance, winning election. I think an Igbo person, it was reported in one of the stories. I'm just trying to look for the story, I couldn't find it. And then some other non-indigens winning elections in Taraba. We also had in the southeastern part of the country how a Yoruba person won an election in the state assembly. So when you hear such stories and you put that side by side with what is happening in other parts of the country, so for instance Lagos, and with all the narratives around ethnic politics and the rest of them, what are we not doing to emphasize the fact that one of the first qualifications of winning or contesting a seat is the fact that you are a Nigerian.
Absolutely. You see, but one is still worried when you begin to profile. See the attack when it came to this Rose Vivo, the
Labour Party candidate in Lagos State.
Candidate of a Labour Party in Lagos. At the point you see some newspapers, Southwest, they prefer to use his Igbo name. That tells you don't belong. The man is also, yes, he has an Igbo name. Yes, he has a mother Igbo, as I was told. Does it make it less? Does it make him less criminal, less less innocent? Does it make him, less a citizen? You know, and why is it that the Yoruba name you will not use? What's wrong with that? So that is profiling the man. And again, the same newspapers you can see screaming headlines. They're now saying Asiwaju is talking about reconciliation. Is it, we are watching to see if those headlines will now come back and start giving the man as a badebo. Why do you just profile? It shouldn't just be. Truly, it should not.
Okay.
All right.
Another story.
All right. Away from politics, there's this rather sad story on the front page of the Daily Trust. It says, soldier shoots Okada man, kills nursing mother, baby, over 200 naira. And if you go into the story, you find that it was alleged that the soldier wanted to collect a bribe of 200 naira from the Okada operator, and the man zoomed off, and he zoomed after the man, shot at the man, and the bullet kills the woman and her baby. And this is coming shortly after the incident in Taraba, where soldiers also engaged policemen killing, So I'm wondering, what do you make of all of that?
You see, this case is the case of, the army will wash its hands off this man. That guy was not doing that job on behalf of the Nigerian army. They say provide security where there is insecurity. Why were you collecting a bribe? What for? And a man has gone. In fact, you are even told, if a criminal is escaping, and your pursuit will even bring more harm, it's better for him to escape than you now go and kill innocent people. As it is now, he just has to face it, court-martial him, just watch, that day will come. See, that's how they'll just strip him of his uniform completely. He will live there, and as soon as he removed them, they said, you are hereby dismissed. They now grab him, give him to the police. And of course, it's a murder case, multiple murder. He perceived it, he planned it, he executed it. So what else? all the ingredients of a murder is there.
But do you think that the army needs to do more? Because, I mean, this is coming shortly after what happened in Taraba. Maybe there's a need for some internal cleansing of the staff members or something.
It's different from when you have clashes between army, police. You say the army needs to do more. But tell me, it's like the African saying, mama monkey. The mama says the baby is at its back. As they move on, doesn't know when the baby just plucked something. You know, in the same vein, you do deployment, you've coached these people, you've trained these people, you've told them, in fact, people who have suffered consequences of their misbehaviors are deterrent enough. But you still find this. So in every good situation, you always have some bad elements who indeed will want to give the military a very bad name.
Okay.
But that single guy cannot be the yardstick, the measurement, the scale in which to measure the conduct of soldiers in operations.
All right, Ben Chemang, in 1 minute, rounding up, we have a story here that says, I'm eager to leave Aso Rock, says Buhari. The president is saying that almost for the up-to time now. What's your take on this? It looks like the man is so tired of this.
In fact, he has been saying it, and he would also want to go take care of his over 300 animals. That's very good, and it means the animals are in a space and they are being taken care of. can we begin to also school others? Can we have the animals in some places so that you see that harmonious livelihood between or living between herders and farmers will be a very good thing. So that water schools are also taken to the nomadics. They deserve to have it too. Like the president is having his in a sport. General Abdul Salami is having his in a sport. Okay. He is tired, but don't be tired, Mr. President. You still have bills that are waiting for you to sign. Don't be tired, Mr. President. Look at those things and sign them. Mr. President, there are also people, some boards that are supposed to have some chairman. You know, Mr. President.
At this point in time, please, we are talking about
just help to sign them before you go. Don't be tired, Mr. President. And again, school the people. Let us live in peace, right, so that Nigeria will move forward, Mr. President. So congratulations, PMB.
All right, thank you so much, Ben Shemang, the former director of News Voice of Nigeria, for your perspectives on this segment.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's it. We'll take a short breather now, and then when we return, Daybreak will continue. Join us again.
But in a situation where you find that a look at the
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, welcome back. It's Daybreak on Trust TV. We are an hour into the show already. So let's take a look at the headlines again for those who are just joining the show for now. Now, elections over. Healing process must begin, says President-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
U.S. Violent voter intimidation mad Nigerians' governorship elections.
Taraba governorship polls. NNPP reject results, head to court.
Now let's take a look at the details. The president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has condemned what he described as isolated cases of infractions, ethnic slurs, and violence that characterized the 2023 general elections, saying the healing process must begin now that the elections are over. Tinubu, in a statement on Tuesday in Abuja, said he will run an inclusive government like he did while serving as governor of Lagos State when he finally takes over power on May 29th. He called on all elected officials to take urgent steps to unite the people and champion the healing process.
The government of the United States on Tuesday said that the governorship and state assembly elections in Nigeria on March 18 were marked by violent voter intimidation and suppression. The U.S. diplomatic mission in Nigeria, which disclosed this in a statement in Abuja, said its members observed the elections in Lagos and elsewhere and witnessed some of these incidents firsthand. The U.S. therefore called on the Nigerian authorities to hold accountable and bring to justice any individual found to have ordered or carried out efforts to intimidate voters and suppress voting during the election process. It also renewed its call for any challenges to election results to go through established legal processes, which must not be interfered with.
Now, the new Nigeria People's Party's governorship candidate in Taraba State, Mohammed Yahaya, has rejected the Taraba governorship election results as declared by INEC. This is even as the All Progressive Congress governorship candidate, Senator Emmanuel Boacha, has congratulated Agbo Kefas of PDP, who was declared winner of the election by INEC. Sani Yahaya, while reacting to the election results declared by INEC during a press conference in Jalingo, says the results were not what was actually recorded on the field. He said he won the election, but the results were manipulated, adding that people of the state know what it was the NNPP. Know that it was the NNPP that actually won the election, but the party was robbed of its victory. The NNPP candidate disclosed that he would challenge the results declared by INEC in the court, pointing out that the legal process to reclaim his victory has started.
All right. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration has, in the last 8 years, contained terrorism, armed banditry, kidnapping, separatist tendencies, crude oil theft, piracy, as well as militancy in the South and cyber security. The president, however, stressed that these achievements were due to the valiant efforts of the armed forces, other security agencies collaborating with the regional and international partners, and supported above all by Nigerian citizens. He spoke on Tuesday when he commissioned the new National Counter-Terrorism Center and the Office of the National Security Advisor in Abuja. Apart from neutralizing terrorism in the Northeast, the president said that the government had reduced armed banditry and kidnapping cases in the Northwest and North Central zones, while it had achieved significant milestones in restoring normalcy to most of the hitherto securitized areas in the Northeast. National Security Advisor Major General Babagana Mungunu said that the last 3 decades had witnessed a vast change in the security landscape in the country and across the world. It had therefore become necessary to broaden the mandate of the Office of the National Security Advisor to accommodate emerging security threats.
This commissioning is coming as we are gradually winding down this administration. It will therefore serve as a major legacy to provide the incoming administration with the state-of-the-art infrastructure to effectively coordinate our national security and counter-terrorism efforts.
One of the key reasons for the establishment of the new center is the series of amendments incorporated in the Terrorism Prevention Act in the year 2011, 2013, and 2022, which broadened the counterterrorism responsibilities of the Office of the National Security Advisor. Furthermore, the creation of the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons, which will soon be moving to its permanent location, as well as the proposed National Cybersecurity Coordination Center, are other major areas of expansion. In addition, there were some key departments that were hitherto not co-located within the premises of the former office of the National Security Advisor that are now in the new office.
Now over to some financial issues. The Central Bank of Nigeria has hiked interest rate by 50 basis points. The bank disclosed this at a press briefing where it unveiled decisions arrived at its latest Monetary Policy Committee meeting. Let's take the report.
While putting into consideration some economic challenges such as bank failures in the United States and Switzerland, NPR hikes in other countries, global and national inflation, as well as volatility in the oil market, the Monetary Policy Committee decided to hike the benchmark interest rate, though minimally for the sixth consecutive time, taking it from 17.5% to 18%.
MPC noted that while the continued rise in headline inflation remained a significant problem confronting the economy, other macroeconomic variables were moving in the right direction despite observed headwinds. The committee's debate at this meeting therefore was whether to continue its rate hike to further dampen the rising inflation trajectory or hold to observe emerging development and allow for impact of the last 5 rate hikes to permeate the economy. Loosening in the view of the members would gravely undermine the gains so far achieved. Members thus resolved by a majority vote to raise the monetary policy rate MPR by 50 basis points.
The Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele addressed pressing issues of the Naira scarcity, which has continued despite approval from both the Supreme Court and the CBN to allow the old 1,500 and 200 Naira notes to coexist alongside the new ones until December 31st, 2023.
Before the Naira design, we said there was about 3.23 trillion Naira in circulation, out of which only 500 billion Naira was being held in the banking system, and 2.72 trillion was being held outside the banking system. And with the Naira redesign, and it was published even in the newspaper yesterday, currency in circulation is roughly close to 1 trillion Naira. And CBN continues to pump the newly designed currency into the market. But the truth is, at some point, we will need to reassess again.
Emefiele also spoke on steps being taken to address failures in e-transactions.
I must apologize, yes, online channels failed, but no doubt it was a result of the deluge of volume of online transactions that hit the banking industry. And I think it's currently being resolved, and we are following up on daily basis. Our payment system management department follows up on a consistent and daily basis with the bank to ensure that where there are downtime, they are resolved as quickly as possible.
The Apex Bank governor further stated that the e-Naira now has 13 million wallets, which have carried out 22 billion Naira worth of transactions. Chamun Dabeng, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, let's now join Mukhtar Mohammed. He's a financial analyst for more insights on this. He joins us via Zoom from Lagos. Hello, Mukhtar. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, thank you for joining. I believe you watched that report with us. You heard the. Let me start by, getting your reaction on what the CBN governor said about 1 trillion Naira now in circulation. The question that some Nigerians will be asking is, then where is it? Because it looks like we're still battling with the issue of the cash crunch.
Well, I think because we are not reading through the numbers, if you have 3.2 trillion in circulation just 3 months ago, and all of a sudden you have just little above 1 trillion in circulation. I think that answers your question, where we were battling with cash scarcity, because for an economy that has up to 3.2 trillion to be brought down to an economy of 1 trillion, your guess is as good as mine.
All right, Mukhtar, yesterday the CBN increased the interest hike from 17.5% to 18%. Now, the thing is this, the question is, between January and February, the inflation rate rose from 21.82% to 21.91%, about 0.09%. So a lot of people are asking, was that enough for this hike?
Well, I think the hike is a predetermined steps that have been taken by CBNs all over the world. So the variables are not improving, and they think the best way to get those variable improve rather, is to keep hiking rate until we get stability in the system. But again, we need to look at our own peculiar cases. That's what I keep saying. We cannot do things the way others are done, because in others' economy, they don't have the same microeconomic challenges that we have. Most of these economies are economies that their interest rate is less than their inflation, comparable to us, whereby we have an interest rate of 18%, inflation of 22%. So definitely, I think we need to look at it critically again and begin to think of an homegrown solution to an homegrown economic crisis, because our own challenge in terms of inflation has to do with three variables. I keep saying it. We have the microeconomy situation, which is not looking good. We also have the market demand inflation, which has to do with demand and supply, and the recent cash scarcity has not helped matter. And we also have inflation that is moved up because of supply chain. When we talk about supply chain, we're talking about the manufacturing sector, production inflation, whereby because of production, most of the variables that help in production of some of these goods has gone up, especially the energy costs. So definitely our own situations are different from theirs.
Mukhtar,
but the CBN keep doing the same thing others do. Yes.
Mukhtar, the thing is this is about the 6th consecutive time they are hiking interest rates. And each of that time, all experts have said is that our case is different from that of Europe and America, and that we had a problem with supply. About 2 weeks ago, the Manufacturers Association said that due to the cash Naira redesign policy and the fact that there was no cash in circulation, they couldn't produce. Now you have mentioned that we need to do production to change this. So on the one hand, the same CBN has the Naira redesign policy, which reduced the amount of cash in circulation, which affected production, and the same CBN is hiking interest rate. What do you make of that?
It doesn't make sense. We've said it before, it doesn't make sense. Again, not only that the manufacturers are dealing with those solutions, those challenges, but they're also dealing with the challenges that have to deal with exchange rate volatility. There's no exchange rate, there's no FX in the system. And so most of them have to source for FX as high as $750 to $730. Exchange rate for Naira to a dollar. And so that also has increased their production costs, and thereby they will have to direct it to the consumer. So definitely, I think we've said it over and over again, but I think the CBN is bent on doing what they feel they are doing based on what the data they have, that maybe we don't have those data. But if we are looking at common economic sense, what we are seeing is that the cost of borrowing keep getting high, and yet people are not even able to access this cash to even grow their business. The informal sector, which is the key driver of Nigerian economy as it stands now, is non-existent because of the cash shortage. We have seen an economy that has been drilled of over 22 trillion. That is the informal sector. So definitely, I don't see reasons. I expected the CBN to address the major challenge that we have in Nigeria as we stand now, is cash scarcity, and that scarcity have a negative impact on every area of our economy, and that is the reason why we keep having this inflationary figure going up. And instead of CBN to look at that and begin to think of a creative way of coming up with ideas, especially as regard liquidity in the system, what the CBN has done was confiscate people's cash. It's no more mopping up, it's confiscation of cash, because even what the CBN governor is saying is the same thing that we've been saying all this while, that it's not that we don't have the cash, they have refused to get enough cash into the physical cash into the system. And he has said it all, but again, we mustn't forget that this same CBN governor have not answered our question. What we will see again, if I'm looking at this, what the numbers he's giving, he told us before then that out of the 3.2 trillion that we have outside the banking space, we'll only be able to recover 2.7 trillion. So we're still waiting on how to recover the 500 billion. So what we are seeing now is that 500 billion that have not been recovered into the banking space is still lying there, is what the CBN is calculating to say we have about 1 trillion in the system. So definitely what we have, we may be having less than 500 billion in the system.
Okay, now to what effect is this increase in interest rate? I mean, here we have a cash crunch problem, which clearly you've said it has affected virtually every other sector. So is there any likelihood of seeing an effect of this increase in the interest rate, given the fact that we still have this issue of the cash crunch?
Yeah, definitely, we are seeing that cost of borrowing has gone up. So what it means that the minimum amount you can borrow is 18%. So definitely, if you are borrowing at 18% minimum, I say minimum, so it depends on the bank you are using and depends on how much you want. So if you are borrowing at 18% minimum, then the effect will also be that you drive those costs, this hike, back to your consumer. That is one. Number two, the financial sector we might experience non-performing loans, especially if loans were given to the informal sector that seems now suffering. And that also is a big risk that the CBN is not looking at. So when we look at those two key indices, they are enough to drag down an economy that have a negative impact on them.
All right.
Okay.
Mukhtar,
okay, so, yeah, before Stella comes in here, is there any benefit at all since this migration that we have, I would say seeming migration, because we do not use much of the cash now. We have more people making transactions, e-transactions, making mobile transactions and the rest of them. Is there any benefit? Is there anything that we may have benefited from this system since the beginning of this policy, as it is?
Definitely. It's not all negative. You need to look at, we have more people opening accounts now in the bank, and that also is going to tame a lot of illicit funds that normally find their way into the economy. It also is going to reduce criminal activities, especially in the area of corruption, fight against corruption and insecurity also. Then we also look at the fact also that the economy itself is going to benefit from a cashless policy because we're able to control inflationary pressure because of the amounts that we know that are in circulation and wars that are done digitally. We must only forget that it also helped the bank bottom line because a lot of banks, their non-income non-bank, that is the non-interest income will increase because of fees that are being paid by these transactions that are done online. And also the government will have more revenue. Remember, for every transaction you do, you pay value added tax. So those are the positive. And I'm happy that the CBN governor came out and said that he apologized to Nigeria because of the inability for them to do a lot of transactions digitally because of the volume, which we've spoken about. And I think that was where you were supposed to look at before coming up with this cashless policy, because you have about 20 million Nigerians doing cashless policy before, but now we have almost 80 to 100 million Nigerians involving cashless policy transaction within a space of between a day or two. So definitely the infrastructure is not able to carry it, and that's why we see the kind of challenge we see in this e-transaction. So definitely the positivity, like I said, are there, but again, the larger picture, it seems to be that negativity outweighs the positivity, because a certain particular part of the Nigerian economy which drive in terms of employment. So when I talk about employment, we're talking about both self-employed and those that were employed are now to be in a state of in a very bad state.
All right, Mukhtar. What we see in Nigeria at the moment is that we keep increasing the interest rate to chase the inflation. So as the inflation goes up, they increase interest rate. And a lot of experts have said that it's a copy and paste approach by the CBN, copied from the West. Now, do you think that at some point, because this is the sixth time, at some point the CBN will come back to the drawing table to say, to the drawing board to say, okay, it appears this is not working?
Well, definitely, I can assure you that by second quarter, they will definitely do that, because we can't say it's not working. It's working, but again, because of other challenges that they have refused to address, we are not seeing the benefits of those changes. Like the CBN governor said, there's a little bit upside in terms of variables. We've seen the slowdown in inflationary pressure in some sector. But again, we are not seeing the larger picture, because Nigeria expects a quantum reduction in inflationary pressure, but we are not seeing that. And basically, that is drawn by one process before, which has to do with the exchange rate volatility. As long as the CBN have refused to address that part of the market that has to do with FX supply, either to manufacturers, even to those that want to do small businesses, SMEs, or also to people that are involved in educational sector, you will definitely continue to see those challenges, because the CBN is shying away. If we are able to address the exchange rate volatility, that alone can bring inflation down by almost 5%. And that is what the CBN is not ready to look at, because they seem to have run out of idea on that side. Then again came the naira scarcity that also destroy the indigenous companies. Now, it's not, I'm talking about indigenous company, I'm talking about the informal sector, I'm talking about that woman that sell corn on the way, I'm talking about the lady that will be selling granite, I'm talking about people that deals on sachet water on the street. So all these are challenges that the CBN are supposed to be looking at and addressing. If they are able to address those challenges, then the natural cause in terms of economic terms is demand and supply comes to play. Naturally, when you get the variables right, there's slowdown in terms of inflationary pressure.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mukhtar Mohammed, a financial analyst. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives with us.
My pleasure. Thank you and good morning.
All right. Okay. We'll now take a short breather, and then when we return, Daybreak will continue our discussions on the governorship and state assembly elections. Join us again.
documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now, results so far announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission from Saturday's governorship and State House of Assembly elections have seen the ruling All Progressives Congress celebrating big wins across the country and reasserting itself in power, while flipping states previously won by the People's Democratic Party. Although the PDP struggled to come back in many states, especially after the February 25 presidential poll, it re-emerged as the country's main opposition party. In sweeping victories, many APC governors secured re-election across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country, with extensive triumphs at the state assemblies. We have Jide Ojo, a public affairs analyst, with us in the studio to talk some more on this issue and all the reactions that have trailed the governorship elections. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak today.
My pleasure. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Well, a lot really following, or I would say trailing, the governorship and state assembly elections. It looks like we are going to be having a lot of baggages from these governorship and state assembly elections. What do you make of the reactions and the rejections of results?
Nothing. It comes with the season. Have you seen an election that is not disputed? You had the election in 28 states, and so three or four are saying, no, you shouldn't have done that. Now they have assumed the role of INEC. APC is saying in Kano, you should have declared that inconclusive. PDP is saying in Ogun, you should have declared that election inconclusive. The laws are the laws.
So are you saying that the kind of reactions we've seen and the kind of rejections we have seen, there's nothing unusual about it? It's just the usual?
Not that.
Maybe at least in the scale of which we've seen.
Exactly. You know, now, I wrote about this in my column in The Punch today, where I also did a kaleidoscopic analysis of the entire 2023 general elections. And yeah, we are not where we ought to be, but we are not where we used to be. Largely, what I see reflected largely the wishes of the people. I'm not saying that the election was not manipulated in some ways, but I'm choosing to look at this more from a global perspective, more from data. If you speak to data, there are over 1,000 elections held on Saturday. 1,000, now around 93 State House of Assembly and 28 governorship. So if you have contention about 3 or 4, it still doesn't make you not to have done well. I keep making the illustration that an A student in university does not need to score 100%. All they need is 75. That means there is still 25 marks that he or she didn't get right, for which it will still be commended that you've done well. And my characterization of this election, as I said in my column last week, is such that I would say INEC was a brilliant student, expected to score A, but ended up with C. It's still a pass mark. It's not a failure, but it's below expectation. And that position, even if I contextualize what happened on Saturday, and we need to also disaggregate what the roles and functions and the performances of the different key stakeholders. I mean, I've read several, and I quoted three. I quoted three observer groups: the European Union Election Observer Mission, the Young Africa, and the Nigeria Women Trust Fund. I picked excerpts from them, and they all agree that in terms of INEC, there was significant improvement compared to February 25, which is what we were looking forward to. That, you know, INEC had issues with early commencement of vote, early commencement of polls on February 25 in majority of polling units. Election did not start until 2, 3, 5 hours behind schedule. Then the issue of inability to upload on INEC result viewing portal, the issue with the distribution of voters, which led to congestion in some and underpopulation in some. There will always be those issues. I'm not saying, and I've said this, this is the 7th general election we are having. We should have overcome some of these teething problems. But you also need to speak to data. INEC has a staff strength of 16,500, but needed 1.4 million additional staff, ad hoc staff, temporary staff, to help it conduct this work. Now, it is said that out of every 12, there will be a Judas. So you have some of the core members or some of the ad hoc staff who wanted to cash out, who sold out, who did the, who did the chua or mago. But for the majority, that's the one I'm speaking for. I'm not saying that there are no exceptions. To every rule, there will always be an exception. But I don't want to join the narratives of the political class, who are themselves the chief culprit in what has happened over the last 2 strands of election. They were the one. Look, I mean, in Imo, they abducted 19 INEC staff. For doing what? For wanting to do their job. Just 2 days ago in Zamfara, Maradun, the result have been collated. They want to bring it to Gusau for final collation. And the EO and the collation officer were abducted. Will you still say INEC was responsible for that? Or even the invasion of the collation center in Obingwa, in Abia, and the chua that took place in Nusuka and in Kano East, which led INEC to say, look, suspend collation. This is a recurring decimal. In 2019, I recall, INEC had to suspend collation in Rivers. That this time around, they didn't do that in Rivers. And a couple of other places, all because of this. In fact, in Bauchi, I recall that in 2019, INEC had to halt the suspend collation, and we sent a team to investigate what happened in Tafa Balewa local government as a result of invasion of polling collation center.
In all of this process, I've listened to you very keenly, but there's this distrust between the people and INEC. And I'll take you back to Obingwa. That's the one of Obingwa. It was, yes, suspended because INEC said he wanted to review the situation at that place. And between that day and yesterday, we had protests there. We had the Labour Party candidate addressing press conferences and all of that. So, and then there was this audio, I don't know if you listened to it, where the rec in that place was said to be saying that she would not manipulate the results and all of that. Later in the evening, there was a fact check because after the audio went viral, people said it was INEC that was trying to manipulate the process. But then there was a fact check later in the evening that showed that it wasn't INEC she was referring to. Now, if INEC, why is it taking so long to address the situation in Obingwa, saying that it's just one local government?
It's not one local government, but it's not that easy to arrive at the decision. Recall that the election was held on Saturday. I think the suspension order came on Tuesday, well, on Monday. On Monday, yes. So the suspension came Monday evening, because I recall I was in one of the media houses when that happened. So it was only yesterday that the team from INEC will go. And then, of course, by today, you will expect, if they have concluded, they have to travel back, and the commission have to decide on the next line of action. So people need to just hurry slowly. I listened to Alex Oti yesterday when he addressed press conference in one of the hotels here, where he said in 2015 that was similarly what happened. 2015 was an election, everybody was clapping and saying, oh, they did well, oh, peaceful transit. But he said in Obingwa they manufactured 82,000 votes.
So the argument that some of the agents are making is the fact that the results that were brought in is more than the number of registered voters in the local government area. So should it take that long for you to figure out that, oh, this number is not correct?
Should it take that long? Now, let me say this. I'm not working for INEC, and you people always want to make me speak like I'm the public relations officer or the of INEC. I don't know why. But the issue for me is that I've given you and I gave you an example of what happened in Bauchi and Rivers in 2019, where INEC had to send a team, I think 3 or 4 member team, to go and review what the situation is. Now, this decision came on a Sunday. The team will be constituted possibly on Monday. Travel on Monday. Abia is not Mina. It's not Lokoja, where you say in 2.5 hours we'll go and come back. So I believe the INEC team will have gone to listen to the collation officer, listen to the REC and other critical stakeholders. There is no gainsaying the fact that somebody is desperate to have that, and you know that's also what happened in Fufure in Adamawa over the result of that local government, and of course in Kebbi, where Kebbi and Adamawa, where the election has been declared inconclusive. Now, I was given a picture before my sister interjected that INEC relies on third party for the conduct of the election. 1.4 million estimated, it could be more, that were mobilized, recruited, trained to conduct this election. Some of these people have party interest. They are partisan. They are card-carrying members of political party. And when you look at section, I think section 8 or 2 of section 8 of 2 or thereabout of the electoral act, it says that no INEC official should be card-carrying member of a political party. So this, what I'm trying to establish is there are fifth columnists within the commission who can sell out, who wants to cash out, and for this kind of people, the commission needs time to weed them out. If you recall the March 4th meeting the commission had, there was a specific instruction that some people who have been indicted should not be allowed to participate in the March 18 exercise that took place. Yes.
And all of that is rubbing off on the trust issues that we're talking about.
Definitely.
In public confidence on INEC. I recall a particular nomination made by the president, Loretta Onoche. I recall very well how civil society organizations, members of the public, have to rise up and reject that nomination before she was stepped down and all that. So when you see such nominations, what does it say about even some of the commissioners in INEC, and how can we really regain trust? Because it seems like a lot of the things that we see is as a result of lack of trust. And without that trust, even people who win in the election sometimes will have to struggle with the issue of legitimacy and will have to carry the burden of having to always have to assert themselves as duly elected and all that. So what does that do? The issue of trust, what does that do to the commission, and how can we make sure that we find a way of, just dealing with this issue?
I would have loved to listen to your own way forward, because it seems everybody is just pontificating and saying, I'm giving anecdotes, I'm giving data, and speaking to, irrespective of what you do. I've just admitted there are fifth columnists within INEC, and they are human beings like you and I. They need that they have to be weeded out, fished out, and punished. That we have not seen much of, but it has happened in the past, where I recall after 2015 election, INEC actually interdicted over 200 of his staff for, I don't know whether you remember, for various offenses. So it's a woman, but I'm saying let's put the issue that there is confidence, there is trust deficit in INEC because of the activities of minority within that organization. But if we leave INEC, what will you say of security agents who looked up
we are going
when
to
all
come,
of this
we are going to come
violence
to,
was
we are
happening.
going to come to security
because
agents.
I choose not to dwell too much when we try to blame the victim. I'm saying here, it would seem to me from a vantage point of having observed election in the last 24 years in Nigeria, that people have not really appreciated the enormity of conducting election in this country in the kind of environment where there is lack of cooperation of critical stakeholders to help the commission to do a great job. So much as I agree that there are elements, I think the APC candidate in Plateau State was a former resident electoral commissioner in INEC. He lost. He lost to PDP. That's if my memory serves me right, because one of them actually resigned to go and join politics. So there are those those ones that you can point to that, does this look nice on the commission?
Yeah, so we are talking about, and I believe which is the reason why we are having this discussion, right? Strengthening our institutions such that they are beyond individuals to influence. That's the whole aim of this conversation.
Yeah, but
how do we strengthen the institutions? Are there ways to go around this? Are there ways of checks?
There are definitely.
If you know, people are questioning the independence of INEC, even
it's not.
And I gave an instance where we saw a president nominate a card-carrying member for a role as sensitive as that of INEC.
Was that not resisted?
It
was resisted by the people, by the civil society, by the media. But beyond and above that, the point I'm trying to make, Ayuba, is that we need to be very dispassionate when we are analyzing issues that has to do with elections. In US has over 250 years of electoral democracy. I'm not too good in mathematics, maybe you are. Do the subtraction, 1776 to date. That's when US have been having elections. But they held the election in 2020 November. That is still being disputed till today. CNN did a survey among Republicans about that November 2020 presidential election, and over 60% of Republicans said that election was stolen, that it was rigged for Joe Biden. That is a country with over 200 years of electoral democracy. Then what happened in Brazil? Brazil had its own presidential election. You saw what happened. Lula won. The Bolsonaro, or what is his name? I'm sorry if I didn't get his name right. His supporters. Huh?
Bolsonaro.
You know, I'm not as good. I'm not as intelligent as you. But you could see his supporters even invading the democratic institutions in Brazil, that they have to call in the military. They invaded the Supreme Court, the Congress. It was. You ask yourself. This morning, as I was driving, I was listening to the report on Senegal. Macky Sall, who came from the opposition to become the president of Senegal, is not thinking third term, wanting to amend the constitution. Is it in us? So what I'm saying is that disputed election is with us, and I'm not sure you have an election, particularly in Africa, that will not be disputed. But what I'm saying is the level of discontent. Let's do, and let's be very dispassionate. Let's speak to data. I don't want to join the narrative, and I'm struggling not to join the narrative of politicians who have vested interest, who, as I said on a media platform yesterday, have spent themselves dry and cannot think of losing because of their heavy investment. Where do you start from, Stella? Somebody bought 100 million naira form, or 50 million in the case of governorship. Then he spent money on the primaries to emerge a candidate. You don't know X amount. Then he spent another humongous sum, 150 days of campaign. Then he spent another sum paying party agents, because party will not pay. It's candidate that will pay. Then now he has to spend another humongous sum, maybe through the court processes. So somebody is running mad. Mentally, he is not contemplating. It's like, so this is the end of the road for me. And we have a system that is called winner takes it all. Winner takes all, somebody spent maybe 5 billion and the money just went down the drain because there is no middle, there is no safety net. It's either you win or you lose. And that's why you see the ill desperation of the political class. But what the point I'm trying to make again is that I'm saying, yes, there are issues with this election. And I admitted and I've highlighted those problems. But one, INEC improved in this second round of election.
Okay, so let's leave INEC alone now.
But
let's talk about police. Let's talk about security of the process.
No, let me also so that
you hear from her, but I would like for you to comment quickly because of our time. I would like for you to comment on the role of the security now, maybe in 2-3 minutes.
Okay, so for me, security again suboptimal to the extent that we know by law INEC does not have power to make arrest. INEC does not have power to investigate. INEC only has power to prosecute. So you left these INEC officials who are not harmed. You put them in harm's way. I'm asking myself, if there were proper security around the collation centers, it should not be invaded by thugs. Police alone got 64 billion for this election. Police. And I want to be quoted on that because they have not contradicted what I read in the papers. 64 billion. The entire budget of security in 2019 was 53 billion. DSS, civil defense and all of that. But in 2023, police alone got 64 billion. Now, by the time you move to collation center, you are no longer spacing. You already, even if it's local government collation center, you will have had a more, you could reinforce, you get. But you have invasion of collation center in Ogoja, you have in Obingwa, you have in Fufure, you have in which other places. Now, should that have happened in a place where security told us they did security threat assessment? We should ordinarily know that those who were about to lose will want to do something desperate. Look at what happened in Beningwari. You follow? Did you follow? Mm-hmm. In Beningwari, thugs invaded the collation center and shredded all the EC8A form. You possibly didn't hear that. And INEC had to now download results that were already uploaded on IREF and recollated from the polling unit. So I'm asking, where were the security men? When those abductions, we thank God it was the police that rescued the 19 adult staff in Imo. But should they have allowed them to be abducted in the first place?
All right, Mr. Ojo, when I listen to you, beneath all of this are desperate politicians, because if they're able to infiltrate ad hoc staff that maybe can be compromised, politicians, if they're able to influence security operatives not to do their work, same thing, desperate politicians who want to win at all costs. So how do we begin to tackle this going forward? Maybe, is it the cost of the election? Is it, like you mentioned, if somebody has spent all of this, the person may want to do whatever is possible to occupy this. So is it the cost of the election or the perks of the office? Some persons will say, oh, this office is too lucrative, I must get in. So what is it for us that makes our politicians this desperate?
Thank you, Stella. Again, going back to what I quoted in my column today, I quoted Professor Claudake of blessed memory. He was a political economist with, University of Port Harcourt in his lifetime. He said Nigeria is running democracy without Democrats. You can see is it oxymoron? I'm not too intelligent. That you are running democracy without Democrats. So it's a combination of what you have highlighted, Stella. It's a combination of the fact that we spend so much. In fact, I did a paper which I'm presenting at an event later this morning. And I stumbled on the quotation from Dr. Ebeg Gobadia, former INEC chairman between 2000 and 2005. And he said something he said, we prepare for election as if we prepare for war. And what some politicians spend is if you add everything together, can prosecute a successful, campaign, war. Now, it tells you, why will I invest 5 billion to become governor? And that's putting it mildly, because some would, in this election, I can tell you, some will have spent like 10, 20 billion. Now, what is the amount they get as salary? Malame Rufai showed us his pay slip some time ago when he was having altercation with Isidro Gara, or one of the former speakers. And he said he's earning 750,000 per month and all of it. Now, would that kind of money make you to kill, maim, and destroy? No. The answer is, it is this abuse of office makes you to become, if there is anything after billionaire, you can become zillionaire. So you also have the advocacy that civil society have been doing about issue of security vote. In many states, the least states in Nigeria today, there is no state where the governor hands less than 500 million every month as security vote. So that alone, and you don't have to account
for it. Yeah.
So when you have, I'm so sure Sanwo-Olu has his own will always be maybe 1 billion every month. Or, states like Rivers, states like Akwa Ibom, and even Kano. So you can see the way Wike plays with money. He was in Lagos and he said, women of Lagos, I'm giving you 300 million. Because there is a lot to play with. So those are the motivations. The perks of office, the influence peddling, the fact that you can make somebody a billionaire. I can make Ayuba my friend. I said, please resign from trusting me. Come and work for me. And then I just give him one letter. Those who are lifting oil, those who have oil license, or even telecommunication license, or even, let's even take it to what one of the honorable members, I think from Kano, said about CBN. That CBN governor can make you a billionaire. Exchange rate and all of that. But somebody appointed the CBN governor. You get. So I'm talking at the level of presidents. That kind of influence will make you to kill and maim, because you have the world at your feet. And the system is such that we have an executive president, executive governor. In UK, what did Boris Johnson did wrong? They said he partied during COVID-19. He lied. They didn't say he stole, but he resigned. Liz Truss came. All right. They made all manner of places. She resigned. How many people will resign in Nigeria? So the point is, the perks of office, influence peddling, has made our politics so lucrative that anybody, and that's why people will even go and take loans, sell their houses to invest in elections.
We should be focusing on making government or being in public office less attractive, if that could help. But I know that that's a discussion for another day. So let's just leave it there because of our time. Thank you so much, Jide Ojo, for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Please, I need 1 hour for this kind of discussion.
All right. We'll do our best. All right. Thank you so much, viewers, for watching. And this is our show for today. In case you've missed, you can always catch up across all our social media platforms. And also make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we stream live all the time. My name is Ayuba Ila. Join us again tomorrow for another time.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Do well to join us same time, same station tomorrow. My name is Stella Iyaji, and do have a very pleasant day.